I knew my walk with God was not going to be nice when He allowed me to say some things to my family that caused them to be pissed and ostracize me. And then I had to turn around some years later and ask my grandmother, could I stay with her? I'll fill you in more when I come back. Hello, folks who have returned, newcomers. Hey, thank you for showing up, folks. And I would appreciate it very much if those who are really digging these videos, testimonies, genuine Jesus Christ testimonies and videos I do, share this channel with folks you think would be, or would be interested in hearing them. Appreciate it. All your support is greatly appreciated. Let's get on with this. Okay, oh Lord, let me tell you. Okay, I'm just going to give a little bit of my testimony. It's going to be like different stages. I'm not going to go exactly from A to Z. I'm going to be jumping around, but it's going to make sense. It started, okay, let me tell you, okay. I was 19. I said that I was not going to be a Christian. I sure did. I did not like the body of Christ, what I had experienced, especially after leaving a Holy Spirit-filled church in the Valley. Our mother took us to a Holy Spirit church. I mentioned it in one of those videos I did, whether it was Church Hurt. I think it was Church Hurt. We went to a Holy Spirit church in the Valley. I think it was San Fernando Valley, and it was beautiful. I experienced some things I didn't like. You could say it was racism, or you could say it was witchcraft, because I was told years ago that racism, well, actually it was in a book I read, that is no such thing as racism, it's just witchcraft. But anywho, other than that, I had a great time. I saw God move. I saw miracles. I felt and experienced true love there, regardless of color, acceptance, friendship, all that. When we left the church in the Valley and came to Los Angeles and went to church, colder than Alaska, Siberia, in a snowstorm. They were so cold and arrogant and pompous. I was so put off. I just did not want to become a Christian. I didn't want to become a Christian until I turned 35. That was my plan. And I know when I made that plan, God was probably like, yeah, okay. I wasn't feeling church, and it made me not want, from what I was seeing, they kind of shaped how I felt about God, Christianity, and church. And then my personal home life and relatives, they didn't make it better. I remember one day I knew there was a slight disconnection from God when I saw this. I had a little production, independent production that I was doing back in the early 90s. It was called Via Faith Production. Even though I didn't want to be a Christian, I still always had a love in my heart for God. I talked about Him, but I just wasn't fully committed. Actually, I probably thought I was. I thought that the way I was living was cool because I still talked about God and loved Him, right? I was looking for some additional help with our production. I cannot tell you how I got these people to come to my home, because we used to have our regular meetings at our home, I think once a week on the weekends. The people who was helping me with my production, my sister would have to remind me of how I got these people to come to my house. But it was a good number of people who came to my home with resumes, older professional people to help me with whatever position I was looking for help. And at that time, it was volunteer. There was this one woman in particular. She had on this nice red ensemble. And I was talking to her, and I was We were discussing, I was asking, it was like a group interview. We were all positioned in various places in our living room. And I was just giving them a rundown of what we were doing and what we had done and what we aim to do in the future. And I was just asking them individually about their experiences and contributions to our production, if they were selected. And it was this woman. The woman had the red ensemble on. She just had this glow. It was a light around her. And she had this peace surrounding her that was supernatural. And she had a beauty coming from her. It was beyond physical. She wasn't, an unattractive woman, but I'm saying the beauty I saw coming from her was inside. Peace I felt coming from her was inside, supernatural. And it was a glow, a light surrounding her. I was taught that people in darkness see that light. When you're walking in Christ, they see a illuminating light coming from you, surrounding you. So when I was sitting in that room at that moment, able to see that light emulating from her, I knew there was a disconnection from God. But I was still drawn to the light in her like a moth to a flame. And I was scared at the same time. But that still didn't get me to turn around and be like, okay, God, I'm seeing something on her that I'm not supposed to be able to see if I wasn't in darkness. Can't say when exactly it started happening, but I started feeling like death was following me, chasing me. I don't know if anyone has experienced that. It's not even something you can express or explain, but it felt like death was chasing me, right? I first noticed a presence, a dark presence following me or attached to me, however it was. One morning, I was out with my homeboy. He was just a homeboy to me, but he had feelings for me that I wasn't reciprocating. I just like hanging out with him, having fun, and that was it. And I just learned a few weeks ago that he's deceased. I don't want to say what he died from because, just in case one of his family members or somebody runs across this video some kind of way, But anyway, he was fun to be around, He was fun. I used to laugh a lot with him. But anyway, we were hanging out. I can't remember. Did we come from the movies? We had come from somewhere, and we were going to get us something to eat and go back to his people's house, because his people's house, they weren't there. Nobody was at the house, and it was a place that we used to go kick it. We went to the hamburger stand, and it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was driving. So he got out the car, went up to the hamburger stand. It was like one of them 24-hour hamburger stands. He got out the car, went up to the window. I'm sitting in the car chilling, I see a car pull up on my right side. It was a white Regal. And a dude popped out with a shotgun. My homeboy took off down the street. I started up the Cadillac. Thank God that dude didn't come to my car with the shotgun. God must have blinded them, but he had a mask on his face. I started up the car and took off, and I think they was following me. I hit a few corners. I didn't see him anymore. More than anything, I was pissed off at my homeboy. I was scared, but I was pissed off at him because I was like, oh, you didn't even run to the car. But I'm thinking that I thought about it as time went by. I was like, well, it was smarter for him to run than trying to run and jump in the passenger seat. And what if I was stuck and frozen, didn't know what to do? And, they came for us. But no, I knew what to do. I started that car right quick and got up out of there. That's what I did. I was driving down the street and I just felt something. And I think before that day or that night, that morning, I felt it. But it felt stronger at that moment that death was following me. Now that I'm talking about this, I'm wondering if the devil planned to have them try to rob me, and take me out that night or morning. But God was like, nope. So I got away from that situation. So after that, I started carrying a knife in my car with me under my seat. I couldn't shake the dark feeling. So I also, and I believe that the deaf spirit came. It had a legal right to attach itself to me because I was willingly going into something that I knew in my heart was dark. I knew it was against God. I knew it was against everything that's about Him. And I made a conscious decision to do it. We have a free will. So the day that I was planning to go off into more darkness, that deaf spirit was just stronger. And it got to the point where prior to me feeling the deaf spirit, I used to feel like depressed, sad. I learned that when you read the Bible, it would temporarily take it away. So I used to do that when it became too much. Because back in that day, we didn't have all this talk about mental health. And it was like you just dealt with it the best way you could. So I learned that when you read the Bible, it would take that heavy, dark depression away. Then that stopped working. God was like, nah, you ain't about to use me. Because all I would do is just read the Bible a little bit. It would take that dark, heavy feeling away. And then I would go right back out into doing what was against Him. God was like, nah, you ain't gonna keep using me. You either gonna make a decision or you not. So when that stopped working, I was like, okay, that's not working no more. But I still didn't turn away. I still didn't turn to God. So like I said, I was making a decision. I had already made the decision in my mind and my heart to go further away from God. It's not like I was in my head like, well, God, I'm walking further away from you. It was just like, I know this is against His will, but I'm still going to do what I want to do. That day I was preparing all day. I'm on the phone making preparations. The few hours before I was leaving, I tried to start my car, but it wouldn't start. Prior to that, I had no problem starting my car. None whatsoever. That day, my car wouldn't start. I told my sister, I was even going to call somebody over to check it out. But suddenly I knew in my heart the reason why I wasn't starting. I was upset. I had made plans to get picked up because I couldn't drive. My car wasn't working. So I made arrangements to get picked up. I was still moving forward. Nothing, no wild horses couldn't stop me. But this dark feeling just was getting stronger. The dark, death feeling just kept getting stronger. I was getting concerned. And prior to that, I was having dreams of getting in a bad car accident that just totaled out my car. And I was driving around in that 81 Cadillac. And if you know, you know. Those cars built in those days was metal. It wasn't the stuff they building these cars out. They're making these cars out, It wasn't this cheap material that they're using to make these cars today. I kept having dreams that car was totaled with me and some people in it who, I was hanging out with. Like I said, when I was still moving forward with the plans, the deaf spirit just kept getting stronger. So I told my sister what I had been feeling. And she was like, you already know what it is. You know what it is. And that's why I was like, I procrastinate. And I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want to hear what it was. I wanted to act like I didn't know why. Because I felt like being ignorant kind of shielded you in a sense. God will protect you and shield you when you are really genuinely ignorant. But when you're playing like you're ignorant, no, you know better. So I turned away from her like, yeah, okay. Still was making plans. So I think what happened was I couldn't keep playing it off. My car not starting, that was one sign. The dark, heavy feeling over me was getting stronger. That was two signs. Third was my sister and what she said. I was like, you know what? I ain't stupid. I have a free will, but I ain't stupid. Something was in me, and I was feeling something to let me know, like, this is it. You make that decision, you make the wrong decision, that's just gonna be it. And for me to feel that darkness I was feeling, I ain't know in the world that I was gonna sit there and play ignorant, like, well, if I die, I die. What I was feeling, I believe, as sure as I'm breathing, if I died, I would have went straight to the pit of hell. Because I was already feeling darkness covering me. And I kept having these constant dreams, reoccurring dreams of having a terrible accident in a car and it was totaled. So I was seeing signs. Then being at the hamburger stand and somebody jump out the car with a shotgun, following me. I took off. They was following me a couple of blocks. I kept seeing things that was leading up to it. So God gives us signs. God gives us warnings. Some of us just don't heed them. I temporarily shut the plans down. I was like, I don't know. I need to, see what's going on. Something, I'm feeling something that's not right. I need to see, and then, like I said, the biggest sign was the car not starting, and I never had problems with that car. Matter of fact, I think I just used it earlier that day or the night before, and didn't give any signs of something. The battery was running, nothing. It was running smoothly. That night, I went to bed early in the morning. It could have been early in the morning. The sun was up, I believe. I just kept tossing and turning, and I had this dream. I don't even think it was a dream. I think it was a vision. It was real. Felt as real as the air I'm breathing. I was in a cave. It was a dark, damp cave. The only light I saw was behind me. I knew it was Jesus, but he was behind me, and his light was shining before me. But the cave was damp and dark. We walked down this corridor, I guess you would call it, into this room. It was a dungeon room, and it was this hideous, evil. I don't know if I could quite explain the hatred that I saw in this demon's eyes. I've never seen hatred like that on this earth, ever. The thing was sitting in this heavy-duty, medieval looking chair, with the long back, and both of his ankles and wrists were shackled to the chair, and both of his ankles were shackled to the legs of the chair, and the neck was shackled to the back of the chair, and it was just staring at me with so much pure hatred. Jesus said to me, you go into doing what you are doing, this is going to be released. This is going to be attached to you, and it will destroy you. I woke up out of my sleep, sat up in the bed, because I was wrestling all night. I woke up, sat up in my bed crying, and I said, God, okay, I'm going to let it go. I let it go, and it felt like 1 billion tons of weight was lifted off me. I felt so light and free. I was crying. I was thanking God. I was asking him for forgiveness. I felt so free and light. I never experienced that in my life. It's been that way ever since. I was 19 years old. I had made plans, 1920, I think. I had made plans that when I turned 21, I was going to be bar hopping. I was about to be living the life of a 21-year-old. God got me because he knew I wasn't going to be able to live that life. When God has something for you to do, you either going to serve him or you're not. You either going to serve him or you're not going to continue to breathe this air. Because he's not going to let you take that anointing that he's given you and give it to the devil. That's not going to happen, because you're going to end up using that God anointing and turning out so many souls straight to the pit of hell. So let's fast forward. I was, things had to change. We had to be disconnected from our family so that God could train us the right way without any influences or disturbances or anything that could possibly come in and try to interfere with him training us to serve him the right way. We became homeless. But before we actually became homeless, God prepared us. He was preparing for it. He was preparing us for it, and we didn't even know it. It started with these books we were told about. One of them was He Came to Set the Captives Free. Lo and behold, one of the people in the book became homeless. And she was a whole medical doctor with a medical degree, and she became homeless for the Lord. So when we literally walked from our house in the rain to go pick that book up. We walked to a bookstore that was, I think it was on Crenshaw. It was a good minute from our home. That's how much we wanted to read that book. Amazon wasn't existing at that time. Wasn't no such thing as same day delivery. I don't even think we had a car at that time. Cause I ended up giving the Cadillac up. I think the gasket busted. Something happened in the Cadillac and it was too expensive to repair, so we let it go. My sister gave up her car for financial reasons, so we were without a car at that time. That's why we walked to the bookstore to get the book. Read the book. Something just would not. When I read the part of the medical doctor becoming homeless, it just stuck in my spirit. It wouldn't leave. I knew suddenly. I was like, "You telling me something? I don't know what it is. I don't even want to know what it is, but I knew it was something." And little things kept happening. We kept having dreams. Both me and my sister kept having dreams, almost similar. We would be running from demons, jumping on top of the roof of houses. Like literally running, jumping over individual houses, running from demons. And they would be like within inches from me while we're running. And I knew that if they touched me, that was it. But they could never touch me. All kind of things was happening. Then we became homeless. What happened was we had some time to leave out of the house. And we didn't know what we were going to do. Because we didn't have a car. We had some help. Some people came over. Our family members came over to help us move our things in storage. Other than that, we didn't have anything. We didn't have transportation. My baby sister, I think she did have a car, but that was her car. So she went off to a shelter. Our mother went off to her mother's house. Me and my sister were on our own. We were outside one day in the front yard. This van was coming towards us. We actually saw the van turning off the major street to the west of us, coming down our street. And it had a for sale sign there. $400. It was a white Econoline van. And my sister, he waved him down. We talked to him about the van. And we felt that this would work for us. We can put our things in there. Park somewhere at night, sleep, we prayed and asked God, just keep us clean. Let us stay clean, Lord. Let us be able to bathe. We bought the van from the guy. Last few days left in the house, but we kept some some cushions from our sofa with us so that we could lay on the floor of the van to sleep on. I had a credit card at the time, so I went to the store and bought me and my sister a good amount of hoodies and sweats to keep us warm. I think we went up to Dorsey High School, slept in the parking lot. We slept in the parking lot, and then early that morning, because they have a gym. Dorsey High School has a gym and with a pool. So early in the morning, we went inside and bathed. After that, we met this woman who had a lock shop. They weren't called design. They were called sister locks, I believe. I think my sister was wanted to learn how to do the locks, and we was telling her about what we were going through, and I was hoping that she would have offered, well, hey, I got a room to rent out, or yeah, that didn't happen. She just was like, I hope everything work out for you, Basically, that was it. But we ended up sleeping in the parking lot of where her business was located. I called my father, got some money from him, was able to rent a room. My mother gave us some money. We was able to stay in a room for a couple of weeks. A motel on Crenshaw is still open too. The motel is on Imperial, between Crenshaw and Prairie. We stayed there for a couple of weeks. I ended up cashing in on this offer a friend of ours offered us. They was, for some reason, I don't know why, but this person kept saying, if you ever need somewhere to go, you guys could come stay with me. I used to think in my head, like, whatever. Because I didn't, at the time, I wasn't feeling that. I was like, I didn't like the way this person we talk to their children. Talk, period. I was like, I would have to be in a serious situation to take you up on that offer. Well, we was running out of money. I didn't want to call, or we couldn't call our parents to get any more money because they was tripping. Ended up calling, asking if we could come through. And they was like, yeah, you can come over. Matter of fact, you can come over today. And I'm having a party and blah, blah, blah. And I was not in a position to be going to see nobody, having no parties. I was like, nah, I'll just come over tomorrow. We'll come over tomorrow and check out the room. Went over there the next day, checked out the room. I was like, it'll work for now. We ended up staying there for a month. And of course, whatever you thought could happen, happened. Yeah, it didn't work out. A big old thing broke out. We ended up leaving sooner than we anticipated and went to stay in a hotel in Long Beach. It was beautiful. After leaving that place, after leaving that person's house and the things we went through and just, things we found out about that house, because it was a spot in the hood and they did all kind of things in that house. They didn't tell us exactly what they did, but they hinted around it, and it wasn't good. So it was just all kind of things going on in that house, and that's a whole testimony in itself. We ended up linking up with a family friend of ours. We would go out to their place, stay over the weekend, have a wonderful time talking about God, reading the Bible, looking at movies. Just felt normal for a change, like we weren't homeless. And then we would go back to our hotel room. One morning I had a dream that God told us to go to our grandparents' house. Remember, I said my mother moved in with. My mother went back to her parents' house, which actually was our grandmother, because our grandfather had died in 1990, I believe. I woke up that morning. I was like, I already know how that's going to be. What we just said to them, and what we had said to them in the past. Well, basically, we was just like confronting them, telling them, in a sense, they was messy. So, people don't want to hear that when they're messy. They did not let it go. They was pissed. But because God knows we desire to do his will above all, anything on this earth, we went there. And in the dream, I forgot. In the dream, I told my mother that God sent us there to help her. She looked at me and said, basically, no, she didn't want us there. That's what she said in the dream. So a couple of days after the dream, ended up going to our grandmother's house. I went in, told our mother that God was sending us there. God sent us there to help her. She looked at me just like what she said to me in the dream that I had a couple of days prior to that. She said it to me in my face with all the vitriol, anger, and attitude and all. I walked away and was like, well, anyway, I'm going to do what God told me to do. You can feel whatever way you want to feel. God told me to come here. I'm coming here. We stayed there. I think it was a year. Almost every day I was talking to God like, God, do you love me? If you love me, why am I here? It was miserable. It was miserable. When it's your blood family, that's what makes it worse. Your blood. I'm talking about first cousins treating you like they hate you. Aunties, uncles talking about you like you some slime ball. Heard it all. Cussed out. Everything you can go through. That's what we experienced at our grandmother's house. Our grandmother was cool to an extent. But a lot of families, there's a lot of instigating going on. A lot of one thing said over here, something else said differently. A lot of confusion. But she still would trust us with her money, her debit cards, let us go grocery shopping, buy us whatever we want to. Gave us a key to the house because remember, we still had our van. So we would sleep outside in the van sometimes. And then I would sleep in the living room sometimes. And like I said, one of our male uncles, he would say the most vulgar, foul things that he could think of. The devil will put in his head, and it's hard to say. And at the end, when he was getting real sick, who helped him? Me and my sister. Sure did. Even though this man, they would call us everything but a child of God, when he was getting real sick and it was hard for him to get around, we still showed him Jesus Christ's love. So around this time, we were still visiting our friend. And as I said in the short, that I was wearing these shoes that I had bought when I was doing an externship. They were very nice Nikes, comfortable. And I didn't wear them that often. And until I became homeless, those were my main shoes that I wore. And they were getting raggedy and dirty. I wanted to go buy me some cheap, decent shoes just to feel normal. God said, no, it's not in your shoes. I want the anointing I gave you. I want what I'm putting in you to be seen. It's not in your shoes. It's not in your clothes. I said, okay. So I didn't buy anything. So the clothes that we had a handful of clothes that we washed regularly. Of course, our grandmother had a washer and dryer. We can wash our clothes anytime we wanted to. So we washed whatever clothes we had. And because we were washing them and drying them regularly, they get faded out. They get stretched out. They get holy. And that's what we were wearing. We were wearing faded, stretched out, holy clothes, but they smelled like Tide detergent. Meaning we stayed clean. If you didn't know me personally, you wouldn't have known I was homeless. Our relatives come over our grandmother's house, because we would kick it in the front yard a lot. It wasn't always super bad, but it was bad sometimes. And we would hang out sometimes, talk to people, because our grandparents had been living in that neighborhood since the 60s. So everybody knew each other. The ones who didn't move away, they still lived there. So they would come down to our grandparents' house, and we would sit outside and talk. Cousins would come through. The ones that talked to us, we would talk to them. People we had met on the block while we were there. Sometimes we would go walking up to the park up the street from our grandmother's house. We would meet people at the park, play tennis. So people that we had met while we were there would come through. Our cousins would come over there decked out, brand new clothes, brand new shoes, just whatever they could come over there. And I wouldn't say they were directly putting it in our face, but when you don't have, or you're told not to go buy new shoes and not to go buy new clothes, but everybody else and their mama coming over there with fresh fits and shoes. And prior to us coming there, our mother told us that people wasn't coming over there like that. Our cousins and uncles, our cousins weren't coming through like that. We ascertained that they were coming through like that, like almost every day, because me and my sister were there. And then prior to us coming there, we didn't really go to our grandmother's house like that. So that was a new thing for us. For us to be homeless like that, that was unheard of. Never been homeless in my life. Have never been homeless since. It was humiliating. It was a very humbling experience. Humbled you right up. Well, if God sent us there to humble us, it worked. Yeah, so as I said in the short, I wasn't able to buy me clothes. I wasn't able to buy shoes. But when we got out of that homelessness, when we finally got our own place, we left and went to New York. Either it was 2000 or 2001. We were there a few months before the Twin Towers happened. When we first went to New York, I kind of knew it was gonna be a bumpy ride before we do it. Before we did it, I knew it was gonna be a bumpy ride. What happened was, we were staying in this condo for a minute. Then we left the condo, sold the car we had, got a little change, packed up, got on a Greyhound, and then took it all the way to New York. We left. We didn't tell anybody. We didn't tell not one person that we left, because I didn't want them to try to talk us out of going. We didn't know a soul in New York. We just left because we had enough of being viciously assaulted verbally in California. We had enough. I didn't feel God telling us no. When we got to New York, I can't even remember exactly how it went down, but whatever bus station, whatever area the bus station drops you off, and the Greyhound takes you when you first get into New York, that's where we were. I think we were asking questions, and we took the train. Train dropped us off literally in Harlem. We walked up the stairs, was in this park, had no clue where we were. It was still daytime, thank God. We asked this little boy, we was like, excuse me, do you know where we are? Can you tell us where we are? I know we sound like a whole tourist. And he looked at us, he said, you're in Harlem. And I was like, oh, okay. We heard about this place all our lives. And we stayed in the hostel. We had enough money to stay in the hostel for a couple of weeks. It was interesting. New York is this whole interesting place. It was that way when we were there. I don't know how it is today. But it was very interesting. Met quite a few people, interesting people. And the money was running out. Okay, I started getting scared. Really. I was like, what we gonna do? I don't know nobody out here. Our family is back on the West Coast. What we gonna do? We sat in Central Park one day. I'm about to cry. I'm like, I didn't heard about New York. I don't want to be sleeping in this park, because I'm thinking we was making plans to find somewhere to sleep in the park. For real. Like, it was scary. Like, are we going to have to sleep in this park? I didn't heard a lot about Central Park, so we was going to go scout around and see if we could find somewhere we could sleep and not be seen. Thank God that didn't happen. God was like, nah, yeah, I ain't about to sleep in that park. So we saw this van drive by that said something about a shelter, women's shelter. I jotted the number down. Told us how to get there. We got there, took the bus, train, however we got there. It was in Brooklyn. We were in Harlem. We went to East Brooklyn and got to the shelter. They checked us in. I'm in there crying. I was in there crying. I didn't know I was going to come out here being no shelter. And I remember this young lady saw me and she asked me, was I okay? I was like, yeah. And I'm trying to suck it up because I'm not trying to be in no shelter crying, She reminded me, like, sometime later after we got situated in the shelter, she told me, she said, remember that day you was crying? I looked at her like, girl, you gonna remind me? She's like, I never told anybody. And I was like, oh, thank you. I don't think I said that, but I looked at her like, thank you. Thank you for not doing that. And we was cool. She was cool. I think a lot of people told us that they was cool with us because they knew we weren't from New York. Yeah, they knew we wasn't from New York, so they felt a little more comfortable with us. In other words, they felt like New Yorkers were messy. So because we weren't from New York, they gravitated to us a lot. And then I knew it had a lot to do with God, because we still talking about Jesus. I'm going to show you what kind of favor God gave us at that shelter. That's why I tell you, God's favor crosses all lines. God's favor transcends all boundaries. When we first got there, I had some perfume bottles. I had perfume in glass bottles. I had a camera. I had a lot of things that you couldn't take into a shelter. They told me, you can't bring this in there. You got anybody that can take this? I'm like, no, this is just us. So what happened was the director of the program told me that she would keep my things until I found somewhere to take them, or I found someone to take them for me. She was a white woman. So I gave her, she took my perfume, she took my camera, she took all that, and she put it up in her office and locked it in some closet or space. It was either a closet or it was somewhere she could lock it, keep it safe. And when people heard about that, when the staff heard about it, when the guards heard about that, it was like, she did that for you? They looked at me like I was a wonder. Like, she never did that for anybody. They were bewildered, really. Everybody who heard that she did that for me, even some of the women in the shelter, when it spread, they were looking at me like, girl, she did that for you? And I'm looking at them like, I thought it was a regular thing that she did for people. They was like, no, she doesn't do that for anybody. But she kept it for as long as she could. And then I had to end up letting it go. So God did that through us, for us. He gave us phenomenal favor throughout our walk with him. He even fixed it up where we met one of the young ladies in the shelter, became good friends with her. She got out a couple of months before us. And then when we got out, we went to after we left that shelter, we went to SRO, single room occupancy. And it was in Harlem, the shelters. Okay, when we left that BWS, it was BWS shelter, the first place we went to. Then we left there, we went to another shelter in Brooklyn. I forgot what it was called. We left Brooklyn shelter and went back to Harlem, but it was East Harlem. We went to a SRO. I went there first. Then 2 weeks later, my sister came there and they hooked it up where both of us shared the same room. It had a kitchenette. It was a whole kitchen we could share. It was like maybe 5 rooms on each floor. And we shared a kitchen and we shared a bathroom. For the most part, it was cool. But you always gonna be tried. And what happened was they were implementing some things that we knew was not right. It was illegal. So we were trying to talk to the director of the SRO, and they were telling us she doesn't talk to people. So you're going to have to figure it out. Obey the rules and keep it moving. Or we going to kick you out type thing. I called around, got an attorney. Told her what was going on, and she was like, oh no, they're not supposed to do that, because they wanted us to leave our key behind when we left the shelter and pick it back up when we came back. I was like, why? Well, because if you lose your key, and I'm like, I'm grown, I'm not gonna lose my key. I'm not comfortable with that. All my stuff is in my room. I'm not comfortable with leaving my key. Anybody could come in this office and get these keys, and they did let people go in the office, and they weren't supposed to do that. They had an issue with that. So we got an attorney, and she made arrangements to talk to the director who said that she wasn't talking to nobody, not even the people that was helping her get paid, the clients, which was us, right? The attorney told her straight up, and I know the way we got that attorney was all God. It was all phenomenal favor. She went and talked to the director, laid out, told her what was going on, what we were going through, what is illegal and against the law. The director, you should have saw how that director was talking to her, like, well, yes, she was calmed down a whole lot. After that, we didn't have no more problems with them. They was tippy-toeing around us. Of course, word spread throughout the shelter. You better leave them alone. Leave them alone. We did whatever we wanted to. It not saying we weren't disrespectful or breaking rules, but we knew our rights. Ended up linking up with the young lady we met at BWS, and we would go to her house and kick it. And then one day, I think she was telling us what we should move in with her. Cause she didn't, we was having so much fun with each other talking, and she talked about God too and life. She wanted us to move in with her. We was like, you sure? She was like, yeah. She had a 2-bedroom. It was like made into a 3-bedroom, but it was actually 2 bedrooms. It was like, okay. So what we did was we gradually started moving in there. We didn't even really tell them at the shelter what we was doing, because it was like, y'all was breaking the laws and the rules anyway. I ain't got to tell you nothing. We tell you when we completely out, because we didn't trust them. That was one reason why we didn't tell them. We didn't want to tell them that we were leaving out, because we didn't want them to try to change our locks. Even though the attorney got them straight, I still didn't trust them. So we were gradually moving out. Yeah, we didn't tell them until we were completely out of the room. Turns out, however way we moved out on our own choice, 2 ladies tried to do the same thing we did. I'm not laughing at them. I'm just saying there's a difference when you have God's favor and when you don't. They tried to do the same thing we did. They ended up taking all their stuff out of their room and putting it in the basement. They didn't have a legal right to do that, but I guess they felt like, well, you know, y'all ain't them. So took their stuff, because we found out. They told us. They was like, you know what they did to us? They did this, that, and the other. We was like, what? Yep, took all their things out of their room. I think they had been gone for some time, and I think you're not supposed to be gone like that, but we would leave. We would spend the night. We would just hang out. We wasn't there like we used to be. And you weren't supposed to do it. But like I said, they stopped messing with us. But other women tried to do it, and they kicked them out. Let me tell you something else that God did. Okay, before we completely left out of the SRO, one of the women we lived with, we got into it with her. I can't remember how it started. It might have had to do with her daughter, because her daughter used to come over and visit a lot. She was like maybe in her 20s or something. We used to have a nice relationship with her. Something went down. I cannot remember, but it was a lot of mess started, and we just distanced ourselves from them. Something happened. The mother called her sisters over. The sisters came to our door. It was just a big mess. We filed a complaint because that was like a whole violation, right? So we ended up, the woman just was pissed. She was pissed off with us. But what we did, for peace, because we lived in the same building, we ended up giving her a gift. And we asked the office worker to be the middle person and give the gift to the woman. And, so later on we found out that she refused the gift. And I knew when the worker told us this, I was like, ooh, it's not going to be good for her, because we came in peace, even though we didn't even start it. She started it. She was messy, and she's older than us. She was older than us. So anyway, I was like, okay, we're going to see how this turn out. The office worker, she was mixed up in a lot of things too, but she was cool, but she wasn't cool. But she also told us that she was best friends with Kerry Washington at the time. And I don't know how we even got on that subject, but she told us that Kerry Washington was her best friend. This is when Kerry Washington was just starting out. I have never seen her in pictures with Kerry Washington, so I don't know, if she was telling us the truth. But anyway, so when I think it was during the last round that we were getting our things out of the shelter to completely move out, the daughter that we used to talk to, the daughter of the messy mother, I think she was looking kind of down. And I think she said hello. She said something to me and my sister, and we ended up talking a little bit. And then she told us that her mother had been hospitalized. She had a heart attack. And regardless of what happened between us, we had compassion for her. So we went into her room just to say hi, speak to her. And she looked bad. She looked, that look when a person has sick and they look kind of dark, like almost like you 2 seconds from leaving the earth. That's how she looked. She didn't have an attitude or anything. When you're sick like that and you still kind of messy, something wrong with you. But she didn't have an attitude. I guess she could have been like surprised that we can't even say anything to her. We asked her how she was doing. We talked a little bit. And I think she hadn't even eaten anything. So my sister offered to fix her some top ramen. We call it top ramen. They call it oodles and noodles. They used to laugh because we actually said the name on the package, top ramen. So my sister made her a pack of top ramen, and when she finished cooking, my sister brought her a bowl, and then I think we talked a little bit more, and we left. The next time we saw her, that woman looked like she had life. She was bright. She was smiling, and we also prayed. Or was it another time we prayed? But anyway, she was so happy to see us. She smiled. She hugged us. She was like, it was like a night and day because we showed her love. And then we ended up staying with our friend for like 6 months for free. She wouldn't take our rent. We had jobs. We offered to pay rent. She told us no because her ex-husband was rich. And she would go spend the weekends at his house. And, she wasn't in need of anything. It's like if she really wanted, she didn't like getting things from him, but if she needed it, she knew she can get it from him. So if she ever needed anything, he would take care of her. She knew it, but she didn't like getting anything from him. I never physically met him, I think, but we might have talked to him on the phone once. And I think he would want us, or he wanted to meet us, but we never met him physically. Because she was one of them type that she didn't like sharing her friends. So even though she didn't really get along with her ex-husband like that much, she wasn't trying to because I think one thing she didn't want him to meet us because I think she was afraid of him liking us. Because her mother was like that. She used to talk about how her mother was. And when she met us, her mother really liked us. Her sister, she said her sister didn't really like people or trust people. When she met us, she liked us. So it was like that. Either she didn't want to share us or she didn't want to share, or both of us, right? We used to make plans to get a big house together. Open up a business. She was brilliant, knowledgeable young lady. If you heard her testimony, heard what she went through in life, she told us one time that she pulled her friend into her dream. Sure did. Her father was Jewish, and he was very abusive, but he was really close to her. Taught her a lot of things. I can't remember if she said he was into witchcraft, but he taught her a lot of things. Survival, criminal things. She saw things. He was abusive towards the mother. Her story is phenomenal. I haven't talked to her in years. I don't even know if she's still alive. But if you ever heard her story, I mean, if she got on one of these platforms and told her story, woo, flip your wig. But she told us that she had this dream. Either she spent the night at a friend's house or vice versa. She would have this reoccurring dream. And it was a scary dream. She told her friend that she could pull her into her dream. It happened. She said her friend never spent the night again. I can't remember all the details of the dream, but if she did it to me, I probably wouldn't have talked to her anymore. Like, girl, I'm good. I wish you the best in life, but no. You could pull me into your dream. But yeah, she was a beautiful person, but she had a lot of issues, of course. She was one of them people that you could have a great, beautiful conversation with her, and then the next day she could cut you off and be very distant. It was just weird. So after around 6 months of living with her, like I said, a lot of times she would spend time with her kids. So she would be gone for like a weekend, weeks, and we would just have the apartment to ourselves. We ended up leaving New York and going back to LA. And prior to going back, I just had a strong desire to go back to California. One day our family member called us angry. Why did y'all leave? Just yelling at us, telling us to come back. So maybe a couple of weeks after that, we left. And we didn't even tell our friend that we was leaving. Because at the time that we was planning on leaving, we weren't really talking. Because we had like a bad argument. It got to the point where we were having more arguments than anything. And that could have been God like making us uncomfortable to go back to California. So she wasn't talking to us. We weren't talking to her. So we made plans to come back. We got some money, bought us some tickets to take a bus back. We took a bus up there and took a bus back. So what we ended up doing was telling her the day before we left. We decided to tell her. First, we were just going to leave the keys there, and just she'd find out when we never came back. I guess we felt to tell her. I'm not sure why we ended up telling her the day before, but she came back home later on that night. She wasn't angry. The anger that we both felt towards one another wasn't there. She wasn't angry. We weren't angry. And we told her we was going back to California. She looked at us. She said, you know what? All the while I was on my way home, or either she said all the while she was at work or coming on her way back home, she said she felt something. She didn't know what it was, but she felt something. And when we told her that we was leaving, going back to California, she was like, that's what it was. And we talked. We had a wonderful conversation. The first enjoyable conversation, I think, probably in a month, because either we weren't talking or we were arguing. Hugged each other, wished each other the best. We didn't really do too much hugging and saying goodbye when the next morning, because we just didn't want to. We hugged her and wished her the best. Told her we would let her know when we told her we would keep in contact with her. When we got to California, we discovered that one of her tops was in our bag, and we know we didn't pack and put it in there because we were careful packing, because we knew how much weight we could take. So we went through our clothes and picked the ones that we really wanted and threw the other ones away. So when we got to California, we was going through, I think my sister was going through one of her bags and saw her our friend's top in there. And my sister was like, she must have put this in here, because her clothes wasn't nowhere near our clothes. We went to New York, didn't know anybody. God showed us phenomenal favor. I forgot another part. When we first got to New York and we were staying in the hostel, we used to go to this pizza joint. They sold delicious pizza. And it was a woman that worked in there. Her name is Dawn. And she, they knew we weren't from New York because how we sound. We weren't New Yorkers. God touched her heart. She took a liking to us and would give us free pizza. So while we were out there staying in the hostel, we didn't even pay for our food. And then when we moved out of the hostel and went through the shelter, I think we had been gone for a while. We went back up to the spot just to say hey, not to get free food or anything, just to say hey. And she wasn't working there anymore. But that's how God worked out for us. He would give us, when we were in the shelter after we left BWS, he gave us favor with one of the counselors. I don't remember what her position was, but she had a nice position at the shelter. She would buy us gifts, we would go in her office and talk to her for hours. And, everybody else didn't like her. They said she was mean. And we would tell her what they said. Not that we was snitching, like, we would just say, oh, well, you're cool. We didn't know. She was like, no, I'm not mean. It's just, I don't like when people play games. She was cool. Her name was Miss Richards. And we talked to her for a minute after we came back to California. And then I think the number I had where she was, she didn't work there anymore. So I lost contact with her. And we came back to Cali. We stayed with our sister for a minute. That didn't work out. Lord Jesus. Then we ended up staying in this office for a couple of weeks. Before we left New York, I had applied to work for this job. And when we came out here, I got the job, and we were staying in this office after we left our sister's house, our apartment. And that's all we could do is stay in the office. They had a restroom in there, and I would have to get up and go get some water and bathe and go to work. I was tired of catching a bus. I got off work one day. I was walking through the parking lot, and I saw this BMW for sale. I stopped and I talked to the guy. I had the money. I was like, I asked him, can we test drive it? We went to DMV, checked out the paperwork, and we bought the car. And we had that car for a good minute. Then we upgraded, got another car. So I said that to say, God was with us and still with us. And I got so many testimonies I can share. But that was just something I was touching on because of the short I did, talking about the shoes. My sister and I was talking about it, and I decided to put a full video together just to talk about things that happened before that with the shoes, and him telling me not to buy any more shoes, and then blessing me immensely with shoes. And I'm not bragging. I hope that's not what you think. But I'm bragging on God's loyalty and faithfulness. Loyalty and him keeping his promises. That's what I'm bragging on. Tell you that God is faithful. That God keeps his word if you just trust him. No matter what it looked like, no matter how hard it looks, he keeps his word. We're the only ones who don't. Okay, folks, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this. To those of you who believe and trust in God, don't give up. To those who don't know how to trust God, never knew what trusting God looked like or felt like, just listen to these videos. Listen to some other videos of people you feel in your heart are being sincere. Cry out to God. He'll teach you and show you how to trust him. Read Psalms and Proverbs. I will see you guys in the next video. God bless you and keep you. May you be blessed with insurmountable peace. Peace that this world doesn't know, but only God knows. And peace that only God can give you.